Misconception number one, do you work like a slave? No. I actually have the freedom to be able to manage and run my own schedule, but considering the role and responsibility that I am in when working on board, it does mean I still end up working a lot more than what many people might think, with the luxury of managing your own time. Now, each of these misconceptions I'm going to cover based upon the role that I have while working on board. This will differ from position to position to position. So for example, let's say you have watched my other video about getting a job working on a cruise ship selling jewelry. If you want me to be able to answer a misconception that you might have specifically about that before you do start the application process or get into that role, just leave it down in the comments as well and I will get back to you. Now, working like a slave, definitely not. But let's go into number two. You get paid so bad that it's illegal. Now, this is very far from the truth. Many of the roles that are on board a cruise ship, because of where the cruise ship is signed under, I don't know the particular name of it, but registered. Sorry, registered is the word I'm looking for. Where the cruise ship is registered, which you'll see on the back of it, most of them are registered in the Bahamas and not directly in America, to be specific. And this does give the cruise ship different ways of being able to pay staff members and not having to follow specific laws from different countries and such. But what I would keep in mind is when you do hear about this getting underpaid so badly, it's all very relative. I know many people that are from many different countries around the world that in a job that you might be looked at as low paying or an entry-level job is regarded to be a very high paying and very well off job in that country too. So just keep an open mind surrounding it, but specifically as a port and shopping expert, I get paid very well, very good. Like it's on par, or it is in that kind of area that will allow me to be able to buy a house with cash one day if I wanted to. So very happy with it. And also there are some other benefits of working on a cruise ship that, number one, and make sure to check this with the country you actually live in, you might also not need to pay tax on any of your earnings as well. You won't pay tax when you're getting paid, but when you do go back home, when you claim your income and everything, certain countries might have different tax brackets and everything surrounding it, or you might not have to pay any at all. So that does help with the perspective of savings. And also the cruise ship does cover all of your costs, from food, electricity, utilities, all of that stuff is covered for you. You would have some extra expenses if you want to go to like a special meal, special restaurant on board, or going to the crew bar. That kind of thing will, start to bring the bill up. Normally the biggest expense a crew member has is internet when working on board. Now, third misconception is you have so much time to go out and see the world. Now, again, depending on the role, with my role, I really do need to know the different ports quite well. As a port and shopping expert, my job is still 80% focused upon selling jewelry, but a good percentage of it that does help with that part of the role is really also knowing the ports very well. As a port and shopping expert, I pride myself really upon not just being a one-trick pony, or this is my only way of being able to do it. So I actually do need to know the ports quite well in my job, basic information of how to get to the closest beach so guests could come and ask me that, independent of taking a shore excursion. Where's a good restaurant in the port area? If I want to go souvenir shopping, what shop should I go to? I also provide maps for the different cruise ports, and these are the stores that we have an agreement with or a guarantee with, that way guests can shop safely out ashore. So in my role, I do really need to know the ports quite well. And number 4, you get to eat great food. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depending on the cruise ship and cruise line that you work with, some cruise lines will have a lot better food for crew than others. And yep, crew do eat food that is quite commonly different to what all of the guests will then end up seeing. In my role though, I'm quite lucky. I am able to eat in practically most of the guest areas on board, meaning I still can eat quite some nice food during that time. If you did only stay in the crew quarters for eating, again, it depends on your likes and dislikes as well. There are sometimes every month or so specialty nights where they'll make different food or special food for a celebration for a certain country's Independence Day as well. So you do have special food nights only in the crew area as well, but then otherwise the food is not bad. There is a reason why they do say most cruisers gain 1 to 2 pounds a day when they come on and do a 7-day cruise. As crew members, we're going to have to restrict ourselves slightly, otherwise you'd end up with, diabetes or something by the end of your contract of 6 months, if not, in some cases, a little bit longer. Now, let's go into number 5. Now, you need a lot of experience or training. This is absolutely false. You do not need a lot of experience. You do not even need to know anything about jewelry to be able to get a job as a port and shopping expert. When it comes into experience for many jobs on board as well, there's very rarely are you needing like a bachelor's degree, a university education to be able to get a role, unless you are going to be in the deck area with dealing with the engine, dealing with navigation, this kind of thing. Then yeah, you will need to go through some kind of university degree to be able to get that role. Otherwise, most jobs on board, including my job personally, you can get it with no experience. But make sure to watch the video that's going to be up here in the top corner of the screen that is covering a bit more information about how to get a job working within the jewelry section on board different cruise ships and cruise lines around the world too. Now let's go into the next one, and that is number 6, and you have to pay for your flights. And again, depending on the role, some people do have to, some people don't, but in my role as a port and shopping guide, I don't have to pay for my flights going to the ship or going back from the ship. All of this is covered for and paid for by HFG Media. Now, you don't get to pick or choose the flight or when it is though as well, but it is covered by them, meaning no extra expense from me. And even when you are flying to the ship and flying back from the ship, a certain amount of expenses is covered too, meaning like breakfast, lunch, etc. So they really do take care of you getting to the ship and back from the ship, including taxi fares, those kind of things. You just keep your receipts and you claim it or expense it. So I get my money back from that too. Number 7 is medical care provided? Yes, being on a cruise ship, medical care is provided. They do have doctors, a full medical facility on board, and with that, me personally, I just don't like going to doctors. I don't like going to any medical facility in general, so I personally like to bring on board a bunch of my own medication and everything too, from paracetamol, anti-inflammatories, supplements, those kind of things, so I can help to prevent my need to ever go to the medical facility. But if you do need to, they are there. I was lucky enough to be on one of the first cruise ships that started sailing after the COVID pandemic, and I even got my COVID vaccinations provided by the cruise line when this was quite early as well for many countries to be able to even get the opportunity to receive them. I got mine given to me on board by Royal Caribbean, so the medical facilities are very well equipped enough to take care of anything. Now, the 8th one is, are you stuck if you need to go home? No. You do sign a contract, but it is by no means a jail. You can quit, you can leave if a family situation does happen where you do need to leave urgently, but you don't also want to quit your job. You should just let your supervisor know about what's going on, and then you will get as much assistance as necessary from the company that you're working with to be able to get that flight to go back home. In my case, when I am to go through that, and I have left once at a last minute situation where all I had to do is pay for my flights going back home, and still employed and everything, and they just said, you know, when you're ready to be able to come back, let us know, and then we will look through and see what ships are available and get back to you about it from there. Still, even with that being said, I would highly recommend, of course, in the role that you're working in, especially with my role as well, I wanted to make sure I'm performing and doing the numbers and hitting the revenue targets necessary. So when asking for something like that, you know with certainty that you're going to be placed there within a reasonable amount of time as well. And number 9 is guest interaction. So with our job, it's very highly guest focused as a port and shopping expert, spending most of the time surrounded by guests as well. It's like being the face of a department, the face of shopping for the ship, of the cruise ports as well. And because of this, there's a lot of interaction that does need to happen. Now, misconception surrounding that is things like can you go and like party with guests, that kind of thing. I wouldn't recommend it. I know some people that have done that. I know some people that have lost their jobs over that kind of thing as well too. So if you do get into working on a cruise ship, no matter the role that you're in, I would recommend it still being surrounded by the purpose of what you're doing for work. And of course, if you do stay in touch with that guest outside of the job, that I would just not recommend it lead anywhere romantically, specifically. This is something they make very clear where you can lose your job over it. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend losing your job over that. And then number 10 is crew events, parties. There is, in many different cases, different cruise ships, there'll be a different environment I like to find. Now with Royal Caribbean, that's where I work at the moment, they have a crew enrichment person that is on board that is meant to be there in their role to be able to help crew activities happen, make these activities happen. Normally, most of the time, they're quite open to different suggestions as well too. If you go on board with the ability to teach dance classes, singing classes, you like a certain sport as well, you can go to them and even suggest, you know, can we arrange a basketball tournament? Can we do this? And most of the time they are quite open to these things happening. And every month they normally do have a meeting with a person from each department, one person from each department as the like head of their crew enrichment side of things. And they have a discussion going over everything planned for like the next month as well. So even if you're not in that position, find out who the person in your department is that is in that position that goes to that meeting. That way you can offer your suggestions as well. Otherwise, just reach out to the crew enrichment person on board. Many of those things do happen. Normally, once a month they'll have a crew party of some kind as well, crew bingos, crew raffles. Around the Christmas time, the cruise line will even give out a different present to every single crew member on board the ship. So there are many crew activities that do happen, so don't worry, you're definitely not going to be bored. Now, with all of that being said, of course, if you're now thinking, he answered some of my misconceptions, is there a question that you have? Is there something that you might have heard that does happen on a cruise ship? If you're wanting to be able to have this answered by a person that's worked on board cruise ships for a very long time now, just leave that down in the comments as well, and I'll get back to you either down in the comments or by even creating a video to answer all of this